Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Own the Phone. We got a little solo session today. Very excited about it. And, we're going to talk about those pesky things called objections and talk about how you can handle them with alacrity, with ease, and turn them around and make a huge win for yourself at the kitchen table in front of your clients, your prospects, or anybody else. And by the time we're done today, you're going to have a very simple system for handling objections over the phone and face-to-face. It is time to own the phone. Alrighty, greetings and salutations. Good to have you here today for this episode. I think we're episode 15 already, believe it or not, of Own the Phone. Very excited to be here today with you. Like I said, a little solo session. So we're going to talk about handling objections. We're going to talk about all things objections over the phone, face-to-face. We're going to talk about things that are that you can do that are specific to the objection. We can talk about things that you can do ahead of time to minimize objections, and we're going to crush it here. So let's start here. So let's first, I think most importantly, let's look at what an objection is. Obviously, an objection is somebody giving you a reason as to why they do not want to, not do want to do business, but why they're not ready to do business with you. So it may not be they don't want to do business with you, just not ready to do business with you, okay? Now, what this begs the question is what does an objection sound like? Well, I think we have to identify the difference between a question and an objection. A lot of people think that questions are objections, and they're not. They're actually questions. And so we have to be able to distinguish when we're talking to somebody, is this a question that I need to answer, or is this an objection? Is this somebody give me a reason as to why they do not want to do business with me at this moment, why they're holding off? And by starting that and thinking about it that way, you can handle each of them much better. Because if you handle a question like an objection, you're going to go way overboard. You're going to give people way more information. You're going to ask all kinds of questions and stuff like that makes it look like, number one, you don't know what you're talking about, or they're not listening to them. And if you handle an objection like a question, you're not going to give somebody enough information, and you're not going to handle the objection at all. So really, 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 really important that we distinguish between a question and objection. A question would be, how much is your fee? An objection is, I think your fee is too high, or I want to pay less, or I can get it paid less someplace else, if that makes any sense. So question, very simple, has a question mark at the end of it. Very, very simple. I'm talking fast. I'm going to slow down and take a drink. I know I talk quickly. So let's take a breather here. Next, let's categorize objections. And so there's what appears to be a large number of objections, but there's really not a huge number of objections. There's different striations of objections, and they really kind of fall into different categories. So one is price, right? Either the cost of your service or your commission, or what somebody can or can't afford if it's in their budget. Timing, right? I'm going to do it now, do it later. I'm going to hold way off, right? Not a good time. Motivation, right? Sometimes people just aren't ready and their motivation isn't there, and timing and motivation are probably the two biggest things you need to know as to whether or not you're going to move forward with somebody in the sales process. Competition, I'm going to work with somebody else. Okay, I'm already working with somebody else, or I'm going to stay put. I'm happy with what I have. We're not going to sell. We decided we're going to stay put. Or you know what? I've had this, I've had this copier in my business for years, and I love it. And it does exactly what we need, and we just don't need to improve it. Okay, so those are the basic categories. Now, there's different things within price. There's different things within timing. There's different things within motivation, working with the competition and being happy with what I have. But by and large, those are the 5 categories. And the reason I'm kind of simplifying it this way is that I think people feel that there's like a stupid number of objections. There's really a small number of objections within each one of those categories. Earlier this week, when I posted my first notification about this, I posted a list of common objections, and this was the result of I think it was 11 years of meetings, or 9 years of meetings for 9 different organizations, where they sat down with the salespeople and said, "Hey, what objections are you getting?" And so let's kind of go through this. I don't have timing. Let me think it over. That I guess we could call that. Let me think it over. We'll come back to that. Come back in 8 weeks' time. Just send me the information. Okay, maybe we'll put another category of just hedging in general. I don't, just kind of like pushing off a little bit, but still that's kind of a timing. Send me something, I'll come back to you. I don't know your company. Your competitors need to earn a living too. That's competition. Your solution is adequate, which usually in many cases means price. We already have a supplier in that area. Competition. We're actually reducing the number of our suppliers. Competition. We don't want a single supplier. Competition. I'm satisfied with my present supplier, happy with what I have. We buy from one of our customers. Competition. We have a supplier. Competition. We buy from a business colleague. Competition. We're in good hands. Either I'm staying with what I have or competition. Your competitor's product is better. Competition. The competition is cheaper. Competition. Your company is too small. Competition, maybe. You're too expensive. Price. Too much money. Price. That's too much for that sort of product. That's also price. My budget. Price. My budget. Price. I insist on a quantity discount. Price. We really don't need your services. So that's kind of like a staying put. Happy with what I have, maybe. Here's one. We're happy with what we've got. Woohoo! I have to speak with the manager. That means you're just talking to the wrong person. We couldn't get approval. That's it's price credit, and then it's against company policy, which is just being a jerk. So anyway, I'm just kidding. So the whole point here is that most of those objections fall into a particular category, and so and a lot of those you're going to handle the same way. All right, so I think it's important that as you look at objections and you start identifying what they are, really try to put them in different categories. Is it a pricing objection? Is it a timing objection? Is it a motivation objection? Is it a competition objection? Is it a want to stay put objection? Or is it I don't even know, your company is too small or whatever. It's that's kind of a competition objection to me as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, first thing you need to do in your situation is really identify with the big objections that you have. Whether you're in real estate or insurance or anything else like that, there are a certain number of objections that are going to come up. Now, what I found, and this is the next thing here, is that there are things that you can do that have nothing to do with handling an objection that can keep objections from coming up. Okay. And a lot of it, Mike Reese, who I've spent a lot of time with, done a lot of work with over at Kinder Reese, we talked about this before. One of his favorite sayings is you got to win before you can start. Like, win before you start. What does that mean? That means you try to keep as many things that could potentially derail a sale from coming up before you even sit in front of somebody. Okay. So you want to keep objections from coming up. Number one, you got to build credibility. You got to build authority with people, right? You got to build rapport, right? And this starts on the phone when you set your appointment. Okay. So credibility, authority, and rapport, you've got to have as much of that as you can before you get in, right? Because when you have credibility, authority, and rapport, you get fewer questions, you get fewer objections. What's his name? Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, says when you're on the phone, be enthusiastic as hell, sharp as a tack, and sound like somebody who is in a position of authority, someone who is a presence to be reckoned with. And the reason he says that is because when you do those things, you are less likely to get pushback from people. You're less likely to get objections. You're less likely to have people hang up on you, say no, and all that other stuff, right? So anyway, before you start, number one, we talked about it. So credibility, authority, build rapport. Okay. The second thing is make sure that you vet your prospect thoroughly. Okay. Make sure, and so on the listing side or the buyer side in real estate transactions, we teach our clients to do a seller counseling interview or a buyer counseling interview ahead of time. And we ask a number of questions before we even go and sit with somebody to make sure that the right person to sit with. Because if you're sitting with somebody and it's not financially feasible for them, you're going to get pricing objections like crazy. If you're sitting with somebody and it's too early and they're not ready to make a decision, you're going to get timing objections like crazy. If you're sitting with the wrong person, you're going to get those objections. It's against company policy. I've got to talk to the manager. I need to get approval, right? So those are all things that can be avoided just by making sure that you vet your prospect properly. You do some sort of a qualification process before you even spend 2 seconds in front of them. Right. So now I've created, credibility, authority, and I've built rapport. So they feel more comfortable with me. Right. I've got some trust. I've got, belief that I know what I'm talking about. I'm seen as an authority or somebody who knows what I'm talking about, which is likely going to give them comfort that I'm doing the best job for them. And then I've made sure that I understand their timing, whatever the timing works for you based upon your business, So if you're selling like huge retirement plans, like 401k plans, their timing may be a year. You're selling a car, their timing may be today, maybe a week. Houses, we want somebody who's looking to buy or sell within 90 days that we're going to go sit with. So timing, motivation. We want a life motivation, like a life event, a birth, a death, God forbid, getting a job, leaving a job, marriage, divorce, anything like that. Anything that's going to let us know that there's a specific time associated with what they want to do, right? I'm looking, shopping for price, not a big fan. Move up, downsize, okay, right? But I want something that's got a legit date where somebody has to get out of their house because they're looking to make a specific move in their life. Because I know if that's the case, then they're more likely to do what they need to do. That's kind of motivation I'm looking for. I mean, if you sell cars, somebody's car just got completely whacked and they need a brand new car because they don't have a car, big deal. Kid graduating high school, college, getting their license, need a car for the kid, great. That's a good one. You know what I'm saying? I want to see if I can save money on gas. That might be a tougher one. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? Can you save somebody enough money on gas over, one car to the other that it would make sense? You might be able to. I guess if you went from a Denali down to a Prius, you could, but that may not always be the case. So whatever you're selling, you have to make sure that the motivation is legit. And then beyond timing and motivation, we have to be able to also understand if they can afford our product, right? They have to be able to make sure that they can lay out the cash necessary, get financing, or do whatever they need to do to be able to make it happen. Right? You're sitting with somebody who wants a $3 million life insurance policy and the premium is $1,200 a month. If they can't afford $1,200 a month, you really shouldn't be sitting in front of them. So you've got to gauge what's happening. For us in the real estate industry, if you're going to sell your house, you have to have some equity. You have to have enough equity to do a couple things, right? Pay the seller commission, pay the buyer commission, pay off your mortgage, and whatever taxes need or transfer taxes need to be paid, any liens, and still have a little bit of money left over afterwards. If you can't do most of those things, you can't sell your home. If you're a buyer, you got to be able to put down money, right? You got to be able to put down payment, pay closing costs, and do the other things like get an appraisal and inspection. So if you can't do those things, then you can't buy a home. So we get the timing, we get the motivation, we find out their capabilities. Let's find out also if they're talking with somebody else, right? Are you meeting with anybody else regarding the sale of your home? You looking at other dealerships to buy a car? You speaking with anybody else about life insurance? Who are you talking to about replacing the copy of your business or whatever, right? It's good to know who you're up against because part of your job as a salesperson is to, create value about what you do, but also create doubt about using another competitor, not by talking down about them, but, basically distinguishing what you do as being superior to what they do, better, easier, faster, more advantageous in any way. Right. And distancing yourself from your competition without saying they're bad. Okay. And that takes a little bit of elegance and eloquence, but that's important. Anyway, so once you vet your prospect properly, once you've gone through the process of establishing that rapport, that credibility, and that authority, once you do all those things, there's a lot of objections that completely go away as a result of that. Right. Because you've done your homework. You're sitting in front of somebody who is ready, willing, and able to do what they need to do. They see you as an authority. They see you as somebody, who is good at what you do to the extent that you've explained it and convinced them or led them to the conclusion over the phone. And you position yourself in such a way that when you get to the house that you have a nice foundation upon which you can do what you need to do. Now, when you sit in front of somebody before you launch into any sort of presentation, another way you can avoid objections is to make sure that when you sit down with somebody that you review everything you went over with them on the phone. And the reason you do that is, number one, you want to make sure something didn't change. Number two, if there's another person involved in the purchase, you want to make sure that, or the sale or whatever it is, you want to make sure that that other person, number one, is a decision maker as well. But number two, feels the same way about the decision as the person that you talk to on the phone, right? Because you go to a house and sitting at the kitchen table and the wife is gung-ho on selling the house and the husband's like, that's going to create objections, right? So you want to make sure everybody's on the same page when you go ahead and make your presentation. And whether they're by themselves or not, just review what you gathered on the phone. Just number one, to make sure that you show them you were listening. Number two, they may think of something or may have thought of something while between the time you spoke with them and the time you got there. They may have talked to somebody. They may have gathered information that allows, you to get more information, right? So what we're doing here is, we're preparing and by preparing and getting the information necessary, like I said, you're going to make a lot of objections go away, right? The whole point is to get to the end of your presentation without any objections coming up. And
one of the ways to do that, or a couple ways to do the things we talked about. And the second thing is after those two things is like, the what's what I'm looking for like the, the things that are not, spoken, so to speak, like credibility, authority, and rapport. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's no actual like paper to sign for that, right? And then vetting your prospect properly. Once those two things are done, that when you get to the presentation, you try and, answer what would normally be objections during your presentation, right? So you know what's going to come up at this point. Like let's say you sell an expensive product, or let's just, you say your commission is higher than everybody else's. So, you want to go ahead and make sure that you demonstrate things or attributes of what you do, strategies, systems, tactics. You want to demonstrate those things in your presentation that show that you're going to make that commission a non-issue because there's so much value involved in it, right? I'm going to, I invest, $10,000 a month in marketing and advertising and professional photography for your home. I'm going to get a home warranty that's going to cover your home for the entire time that it's on the market. And as a result of that, if anything happens, that could potentially derail the sale of your home, you pay a $75 deductible, and then we're going to, the warranty company is going to take care of the rest, and then on average, how much more you get than other agents for your clients' houses. And so anyway, what objections are common within your industry, and your presentation, without you saying, hey, a common objection I get is this, without you necessarily needing to say that, you handle that objection by making sure that you put in your presentation things that are going to combat those before they come up. Now, look, by the way, I can see your comments. If you have questions, if you want to throw an objection by me, how would you handle this? How would you handle that? Go ahead and drop that in the comments section. I'll leave it open here. Be happy to, kind of engage with you here as we're doing this. Okay, so now we go and, and here, one more thing, and I think it's important, and I think a lot of this gets lost on people, is that, we need our and I'm saying this carefully because I don't want people to think that they shouldn't go out and do something without being perfect, but, you should be able to understand how to, build authority, credibility, and rapport with the phone and face-to-face. You should be able to know how to vet your prospects and at the same time qualify them so that when you sit in front of them, you're sitting in front of the best possible opportunity. You should know how to give a presentation that demonstrates value, that distances you from your competition, and at the same time, helps people, basically eradicates as many objections as possible while you're doing your presentation. And in addition to that, you should be able to have good, clean transitions between those different segments, if that makes any sense, right? Leading people, keeping them in touch with you, checking in, and then, little trial closes, all things that keep the glue that keep your presentation together along the way so that you don't lose people. Remember, anything that creates doubt, anything where you're going to lose people gives objections a chance to rear their ugly heads, right? So we want to, again, objections are going to come up. Okay, they're going to come up. And if they come up, it's not the end of the world, but we want to do as good of a job as we possibly can. And all those phases that I've talked about, including the transitions, including, intros to ideas, including tie downs to keep people involved and getting yes momentum, right? So that when we get to the time when it's time to ask for the order, that in many cases, we don't even have to ask for the order, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to take like 10 seconds here if you want to ask me a question. And if you're watching this, by the way, if you're watching this on quote tape delay, if you're from the 70s and 80s, you can still comment on here. And, I'll go ahead and answer these questions as many times, as we can in the future. So if you have some comments, you have any questions, go ahead and post, and I'll see it here. So now we're going to get to objections. Okay. The actual objections themselves. Let's talk about over the phone first, and we'll talk about face-to-face because you're going to handle them differently. I was thinking of putting a diagram together because I have a diagram that I give, but I want people to write it out. Because if you write out the diagram and you write this down, it's going to stick in your head better. Your retention is going to be better, and it's going to make more sense to you than just looking at something that I drew for you. So somebody's on the phone and they say, we're going to sell our home ourselves. That's an objection, right? I'm going to sell my home myself. Okay. So I want you to take a piece of paper and I want you to, put it like I want you to put it landscape orientation, right? And so on the very left-hand side, I want you to write objection. So write the word objection, okay? And then it's going to go across probably the whole page. So make sure you have enough room for you to write objection. And then put a little arrow. And the next word you're going to write next to that is validate, right? We want to validate people's objections, right? Nobody wants their Objections, the beliefs. Okay, the market is unstable. Thank you very much. We will get to that. In fact, let's do the market is unstable. Let's say, okay, so the market is unstable. So the objection is the market is unstable. And so I guess we'll do this from a seller's perspective. Okay, someone's selling house, the market's unstable. So, right, so objection to sell, the market is unstable. Little arrow, validate. You know what? It's perfectly fine that you think that, or you know what? I think that's a reasonable thing to say at this moment, or I get it. It makes sense to me. Great. Next, arrow, right? So I'm going through, hey, you know what? We think the market is unstable. Okay, I can appreciate that. That makes sense. Question. Now we're gonna peel back the layers of the onion, right? So we're gonna ask some questions here. Okay. So when you say the market is unstable, what do you mean? Right? When you say the market is unstable, what do you mean? You know, well, we're not sure that let me think about here. You know, we think if we sell a house and buy now, you know, we may not be able to sell our home for the amount of money that we want in order to get the results. We need to make enough money to go ahead and buy the next home because the market's been great, but now, you know, Biden's messing everything up and we got foreclosures coming and, you know, the pandemic is coming and there's all kinds of uncertainty. And so, you know, we're just concerned that the market coming up is going to be really unstable. Okay. I can appreciate that, right? You want to validate if you can. So let me ask you, you know, when you say unstable, you concerned that you're going to lose your job? Well, no. Okay. Do you have enough equity in your house? You think? I mean, based on what we have, I mean, do you have a rough idea of what the value of your home is? Do you think you have enough equity in your home? I mean, how long have you lived there? Well, we've been here 10 years. Okay, well, strong possibility that unless you've taken out 9 loans, right? You wouldn't say that, but, you know, strong possibility you have enough equity in your home. So, you know, you're going to kind of, so at this point you ask the questions because you're trying to find out what the issue is, right? Because, you know, we can't solve a problem that we don't know exists and the market is unstable is really broad. So we're going to peel back the layers of the onion, right? Say, okay, so the answer to these questions is, so when you say the market's unstable, what's your big concern? Because it sounds like to me that everything that you have here is in order. And eventually just going to say, well, you know, we're not sure we're going to be able to get enough money for our home to do what we need to do. So, right. So we've kind of boiled it down. So now I have the challenge, right? So now I have the actual objection, right? So I've got objection, I've got validate, I've got peel back the layers of the onion. So just, you know, I want to dig, and I want to find out what the real issue is. Okay. And then, you know, and then I'm there. So now what I want to do is I want to basically solve the problem. So I'm going to put another arrow and I'm going to put solve the problem. And then I'm going to put another arrow and I'm going to put if then, if I could, would you, sorry. So objection, arrow, validate, arrow, peel back the layers of the onion, question. And then arrow, identify real objection, arrow, solve the problem, arrow, if I could, would you? Okay. So now I found out that we don't think we're going to be able to get enough money for our house to do what we need to do. Okay. So, and, you know, I'm not going to get into prices of houses, commissions, you know, how much money do you need? I'm just going to go, okay, solve the problem. So I get it. I understand. So basically what you're telling me, once you get that real objection, repeat it back to them. So you want to just repeat it back to them so that you're clear on it, right? So repeat it back to them. So what I'm hearing is that you're concerned you're not going to be able to sell your home for enough money to go ahead and buy a home in light of what's coming down the market, that you think that there's all kinds of stuff that could derail the sale of your home once you put it on the market, meaning you can't get enough money for it to do what you need to do. Is that correct? Cool. Well, let's talk about it for a second. Right now, home prices are still going up. There's no indication that home prices are going down at the moment. You know, the average increase of a home in McKinney, Texas over the last year has been 25%. And literally, we're still looking in some parts of McKinney at 6% increase a month. So, you know, things are going really, really well from everything that I see. Let me ask you, if I could get your home sold for the amount of money that you needed in order to be able to move on to buy the next home and feel comfortable that you were doing the right thing, if I could show you how to do that, would you be open to sitting with me so I could show you how to do that? Right? Right. So I'm going to say it one more time. So we do the objection and go next, and we go validate. Hey, that makes sense. I got it. We're going to go ahead and peel back the layers of the onion. Question. We're going to find out what the real objection is at that point. We could call it isolating if you want to. If you want to validate again, you could. Okay. And then repeat it back to them so that you're on the same page. And then you're going to go ahead and you're going to solve the problem and say blah, 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 blah. And then you're going to say, if I could, would you? if I could show you a way, or if I could help you get enough money, if I can show you what we can get you, still get you enough money to do what you needed to do, no matter what's happening in the market, so you can move on and buy the house that you wanted to buy, would you be open to sitting with me so I could show you how to do that? And then the answer is a yes or no. And if it's a no, then say, look, what would have to happen in order for me to do that? Okay, so you may have to go back and play this back a couple of times, but that's basically how you would handle an objection over the phone. You're just really you're doing the same thing face to face. It's just a little different face to face because you have more time. You have body language to your advantage. You've got things you can point at, numbers you can bring up, data you can show. Like, show me is always better than tell me is one of the things I learned from my real estate mentor. So, but over the phone, you got to kind of follow in that path, and it's not. And the reason we do that is because we want to keep people on board. We want to show people that we're listening. We just don't want to run over them. You know what I'm saying? Well, the market is unstable. Well, the market's not unstable, for God's sakes. You're going to be able to sell your home. For God's sakes, people are getting a stupid amount of money for their home. Homes are selling for 40, 50% more everywhere. The market's unstable. You don't even know what you're talking about. Like, something to that effect, that's not going to get it done. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to hear people. You want to listen to people. You want to let them know that they're heard. And then take them down that path, because you want to get to the if I could, would you? Right? If I could solve your problem, would you let me come and show you how to do that? And when you can do that, and you can do that well, you're going to get a lot more yeses. You're going to handle those objections. You're going to get in the door. Okay. I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. Any questions about that? Any thoughts? Anyone? Bueller? Here's the other thing. We, at Kinder Reese, NAEA, Honey Badger Group, if you're an EXP, one of the things we've been preaching for the last more than a decade is being an expert, right? Be the expert, be the authority. Because when you're the expert, you can use information to your advantage, like I did in what I was just saying to them. Geez, over the last year, the market, in just McKinney, Texas alone has been up 25%. And even at this time, we're still seeing 6% increases every month. Okay. And from what I understand and what I'm reading, there's no reason that's going to go away anytime soon. Right now, it would be better if I could show you this. And when I come to the house and sit at the kitchen table and talk to them, I will show them. Okay. But at the end of the day, it's important to try and use as much information as you can when you're on the phone to show that you're an expert in that. Okay. So that's over the phone. Let's talk about face-to-face. So same process applies, right? The same exact process applies, that we were talking about earlier. It's just that, the objections over the phone are going to come up during those phases that I talked about earlier. But sitting across the table from somebody at a kitchen table, sitting across the desk at a car dealership, sitting at someone's house talking about insurance, whatever you do, doesn't matter. You sit in front of them, you do your presentation, you try and do everything you can to mitigate those objections. And then when it's time to get where you need to be, the objections are going to come up again. Okay, so you know what? Your commission is too high. This is just too much money, for what you're looking to do. Okay, I can appreciate that. So the same thing, objection, right? The next thing is validate, comfort, cushion. Hey, listen, I appreciate that. Okay. A lot of people like feel, felt, found, and I feel, other people have felt the same way. This is what they found. That's one option. So you can do that too. But, once you in this case, when you're in front of them, I'd probably repeat it. So, hey, that makes sense. I appreciate that. Just so I'm understanding what you're saying is you think that for the services that I offer, for what I'm looking to do for you, that it's too expensive for you, that you think it's too much for what I'm offering to do. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay. Is that the only concern you have? Is that the only thing keeping us from doing business tonight? So then we isolate, right? Objection, validate, comfort, cushion, repeat, isolate, make sure it's the only objection. If they have there's that and there's this and there's that. Okay, well, let's do this. We'll just take these other two. Let's put them on the shelf and we'll get back to them. Let's just deal with this one first. Okay. And then, again, I guess put a little arrow on the piece of paper and say, okay, so, when you say it's too expensive, what does that mean? Does that mean you can't afford it? Right. So we're peeling back the layers of the onion again. Does that mean you can't afford it? No, we can afford it. We just think it's too much money. Okay. Now you can refer back to the presentation and you said, hey, listen, when we were talking, I told you about, how much more money I spend than other agents on marketing and advertising to get buyers through your home. And you agreed with me that it made sense that in order for us to get the largest number of the right buyers through your home, that, we're going to need to do this kind of marketing because your home is a higher end home and it's a little special, right? You also agreed with me that professional photography and having a home warranty and having your home staged and doing all these things to get the right kind of exposure and have it look the best it possibly can for the people that are coming through the door. You agreed also that that was really important to help you get, the top dollar that you're looking for, correct? Yes. Well, here's the thing. Okay. And so now we're going to go ahead. We peel back the layer of the onion. We know that they can afford it. They think it's too expensive. So I'm now going to go ahead and I'm going to, again, we're solving the problem. So I go solve and I say, okay, let's go back to this and then say, okay, so here's the thing. In order for me to spend the amount of money necessary to get the number of people through the door, to get your home sold to the right person so they'll pay the amount of money you want, in order to get your home staged, to take professional pictures, to get the home warranty, and do all the things to give you this, what we call certified wise buy program, it costs money to do that. Okay. And I'm willing to take the risk up front. I'm willing to lay out all the money up front to do all of this, but I need to get compensated for the job that I'm going to do. Right. If I'm assuming you want top dollar still, right? Yeah. Okay. So in order for me to get top dollar, I need to make a bigger investment on your home. Okay. And it's going to take me more time and more energy. And as a result of that, I'm asking for the commission I'm asking because it's going to net you the results that you want. At the end of the day, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, are you more concerned with how much you're spending or how much you're going to walk away with? Right. And hopefully they're going to say walk away with. They may say both. And sometimes they're being a wise guy. And I say, listen, I appreciate that, but at the end of the day, you get what you pay for. And really, and honestly, real estate is the ultimate get what you pay for business, if that makes any sense. Right? Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to close it. So based upon what we talked about and how much more I'm going to get for your home based upon what we're going to do, can you see why my commission is actually a good value for the things that we're going to get for you, the results we're going to get for you? And if they say yes, great. And if they say no, then, you go back and offer them a price guarantee. Okay, listen, how about this? Well, if I can't get you $497,000 for your house, then I'll reduce my fee by 0.5 point or whatever, but the whole point is that you just want to handle the objection that way. So let's just go back real quickly and kind of review everything. We're just about the end of our time. We're going to go ahead and make sure that we present ourselves properly on the phone, that we do everything we can to create that credibility, authority, and build that rapport of the phone. We're going to have a good transition to qualifying, vetting our prospect to make sure that this is somebody we should be sitting in front of, somebody who is ready to do something within the time frame that works best for our business and is able to, from a pricing perspective, from a timing perspective, and that they meet our minimum criteria for what we're looking for in a prospect who can make a decision, that they're the right person that can make a decision. Okay. And then we're going to transition to our presentation. We're going to sit down and repeat everything we learned back to them. If it's just them, we're going to confirm it's the information they gave us. If it's somebody else who's involved, we're going to check in with them and make sure that they're on the same page. And once all of that happens, we're going to go into our presentation. And our presentation is going to have, points well made. We're going to demonstrate value. We're going to use tie downs. We're going to transition properly. We're going to do everything, trial closes. We're going to do everything we can to get that yes momentum and everything we can to answer or solve as many objections and answer as many questions as possible. So when it comes time for, as Alec Baldwin said in the and Glenn Ross, for them to sign the line that is dotted, right? So to go ahead and get their authorization on it. When it comes to that there hopefully are no objections, but if there are objections, they're minimal. And then we talked about the strategy for, handling objections face-to-face and over the phone as well. So look, I covered a lot in a half hour. I would go ahead and watch it again if you found this was valuable. I would go ahead and write out those diagrams for yourself and kind of plug and play and put your objections in there and solve the problems and fill out the graph or the diagram for the different objections you get and learn them that way. And then, I hope this is something that you can use for training too, for the folks that you work with. And, you can download it and whatnot and share it with people. But listen, at the end of the day, objections are bound to come up at one point or another. My goal when I'm selling is to get as few objections to come up as possible down the road so that I know roughly the ones that are coming down the pike. And then I know how to handle them properly. And remember, we talked about all the different types of all the different objections there were, but the types, price, timing, motivation, competition. I'm happy with what I have, and then that kind of I don't even know what it is. I want to wait. I want to hold off. Okay. And one last thing, I'm not interested is not an objection, right? Because an objection is a clear reason why I'm not ready to do business with you right now. I don't know. It's just a knee-jerk reaction. It is literally we call it a conditioned response, right? I'm talking to a salesperson. Immediately, I'm not interested. me thinking I'm going to go away. So you need to know how to handle I'm not interested, but it's not an objection. Okay. And by the way, to handle I'm not interested. Hey, look, I wouldn't expect you to be interested. I just called. I didn't even tell you about anything. Or what are you not interested in? I haven't even talked to you about it at all. You know, what would happen for you to be interested? What would I have to say for you to be too interested? So those are just a couple of things. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this today. I hope you found it helpful. My goal always is to educate and inspire. I hope I've done that for you today. Would love to hear your feedback on this on the replay as you look for it and see anything. And, until next Wednesday, this is Wally Bressler. This has been On the Phone. Hey there, this is Wally Bressler, and on behalf of my guest today, I'd like to thank you for joining us for this episode of On the Phone. If you'd like more information on how to overcome sales call reluctance, procrastination, and self-sabotage, and become an expert on the phone, go to www.phonesalessecrets.com. And if you'd like my free course on how to overcome sales call reluctance, please go to www.phonesalessecrets.com/go. Good luck and good selling.